Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central. And here's your host, Bob Hickey.
And welcome to another fantastic episode of Foxborough Central. I'm Bob Hickey, your host, thanking you for taking a little bit of time to join me and my guests as we talk about the people, events, and organizations that make Foxborough truly the gem of Norfolk County. And of course, we are enjoying our guest tonight, Michael Stanton. Mike, how you doing?
Bob, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Always
Good to
too
see
long.
you.
Always too long.
Clean shaven and
living a clean life, I hope.
And I'd like to, really, and Nancy and I extend our congratulations to your son, making Eagle.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Kevin made his Eagle Scout rank, and a lovely project at the Doolittle home. Received a lot of community support, patriotism, and a lot of good folks out there at Troop 7, so thank you very much. Appreciate that. Being a scout leader, emeritus, I guess I should say.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it's quite an accomplishment, and it's quite a feather in his cap.
Well, a lot of the work you've done is in Troop 32 and with the Scouts has been long remembered. So
The 3-2.
There you go. Well, we've given our shouts out to Scouts, and now what we're going to do is give you, folks at home, hopefully a little bit of a preview of a couple of warrant articles coming up at the annual town meeting. This is a special election coverage, and town politics is always my passion, if you will. So I love talking a little town politics and seeing what's coming up. Now, with the Water and Sewer Department, typically people don't always know what's going on over there because a lot of the work you do is nuts and bolts as opposed to big sexy taxation and monumental change. But if you think about it, it is monumental change because what is the one, and you and I served together as selectmen back in the aughts, in the 2000s. So maybe you and I can probably attest to this, but one of the big preventers of our growth in the downtown area is what? Lack of sewage capacity. A lot of that is brought on by the Title V regulations and the recalculation, but never mind the reason why. We're stuck in this situation. So a lot has happened these last few years that has made water and sewer a big sexy topic because we're on the cusp of having an opportunity to have that growth. So that's my intro. Mike, how you doing?
Good. Well, we could spend some time talking about water and sewer and get into the warrant articles a little later.
Well, let's talk warrant articles first because that's why everybody's tuned in, and I'd love to talk about that, and then maybe at the end. So that's my own fault. I hosted and I led you down the wrong path.
Okay.
Good for you for bringing us back.
We have two articles at town meeting. One is fairly simple. We have, I think, 6 or 8 properties that are petitioning the town body to be included in the sewer service district.
Okay.
These are typically properties that have an existing sewer line right in front of them. And now that we have formalized our intermunicipal agreement, the Mansfield, Foxborough, Norton sewer treatment plant, they now have the ability to get in. So that's one, and that's pretty innocuous.
And the reason why we have abilities is because there's increased capacity for the outflow. Is that correct? Is that I'm using nickel terms, I understand, but
when you really get into the world we were living in, is that anytime a sewer treatment plant reaches 80% of capacity, they must plan for expansion. And when that happened, the piece for the expansion would have been, I believe $18 million. And that $18 million would have been borne solely by 963 ratepayers.
The people who are currently tied in the sewer.
Right. And that would have,
that's a burden.
It's significant, and it was a burden. So after much discussion, we felt it would be best if we took the risk and bought in to more capacity. That allowed us 2 things. One, open up more flow for the areas of town that needed it. And additionally, it recalculated how things were done in the past. And it allowed a lot of, shall we say, sequestered flow that was there but never available to us.
For example, if a business had capacity, they wouldn't want to sell their capacity because they might need it at some point or want to potentially resell it if the legislation change, whatever. And that was not available to you, meaning you, the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners, to use as current outflow.
Not quite.
Which is why I was a selectman, not on your board. That's why we're here.
We don't have time tonight to get into it because it's incredibly complicated. And if I tried to do it, in a sound bite, it just cannot be done. But the fact is
exactly
that people had purchased an amount of flow, and there was this calculation that said you had to buy Title V flow, but you could only use your actual flow.
Right.
And this whole, so the sandwich is now available.
And that's what I was driving at. The Title V regulations create X amount of flow per bathroom, per bedroom, per whatever. But that isn't necessarily what is actually being used, but that's what the capacity was. And now you're saying that there's a marrying of the two.
Exactly.
Okay.
And all that additional flow comes back to the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners.
And now, so things are also different because with the intermunicipal water agreement, with the legislation that was passed or pushed through with Representative Barrows starting in 2009, and there's been a long process.
It's been a long
process. We're now owners, and I say we, the town of Foxborough, we're now owners as opposed to the earlier arrangement where we were customers.
Exactly right.
And so that gives us a lot more flexibility, a lot more of an opportunity to take advantage of your capacity, of the opportunities there. So this warrant article for this was 8 properties that are being.
Yes.
Okay, so that's how this is able to happen.
Right.
And the advisory committee says.
Favorable review.
And everybody else says favorable review?
Absolutely.
That's great.
That's why we did this. This has been a multi-level process over so many years. Originally we got approval to petition the legislation to allow us to come in. Then we got approval to join. Then after, my goodness, probably 3 years of negotiations with 3 towns, you finally struck an agreement, and I'm going to throw out a kudo to our council, Steve Mattis, who we brought in. He came in, looked at what was going on, and I'm not trying to run anybody down here, but no, you had engineers working in agreement based on the prior agreement.
It is very possible to praise Bill Belichick without criticizing Pete Carroll. It's okay.
But he came in and said, "Whoa, you're doing it all wrong. You've really got to look at this as almost like a regional school district." And really turned it upside down and said, "No, you've got to identify the assets, who's paid for what, and really put it into a proper business model." And all 3 towns agreed. It was a major breakthrough.
Wow.
And I think
A fresh set of eyes.
Yes, and probably in 8 months, we'd accomplish more than had been done or not done in the prior 3 years.
Fantastic.
So the
Well, that's good
agreement
news
is
for
good.
us.
Yes, Foxborough now has 2 of 7 seats. Mansfield has 3. Norton has 2. Foxborough has 2. So you're right. We have now ownership versus being customers.
Fantastic.
And that's a huge advantage.
And I remember and what you're talking about with the flow going by, I remember when the Carl Annan Court, which was originally hooked into the old state hospital sewer system, right. And when that was decommissioned on an emergency basis, there was a situation where that had to be emergency plumbed to go to the existing plant, but because we're already at capacity, and people can argue about Title V, maybe it's rain flow from storm runoff, whatever it was, the simple fact was that we were at capacity, couldn't expand, but because it was an emergency that happened. I live on Baker Street, and we all saw the pipe go by our house, and nobody had an opportunity to tie in. Right. So this is, and this has nothing to do with Baker Street, by the way, but this is an opportunity to relieve some of those things that happened and give some opportunities for expansion of our system, which would enhance the number of ratepayers, which would ideally strengthen the entire
that's
system.
part of it too. We really want a dollar cost average here to lower the impact. Mm-hmm. And if you get additional commercial growth, it's I think the societal gain will certainly outweigh any criticism I might take. So,
well, the joy of being in an elected office is that you get the slings and the arrows.
Yeah.
But I've said it many times that credit goes to anybody who steps up to and you've been serving on the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners now for how many years? 6 years.
Yeah,
wow. And
if the blanks don't beat me, I'll be in for 9, and that'll be it.
I will not hold you to that promise because I know a lot of us are happy with what's going on and happy with the job being done.
Well, we've done. It goes back to when Bill Early came back on the board, and we were looking at what was in front of the town, and given the fact that we're enterprise accounts, mm-hmm. We're self-funded here, and I think there were some real bold decisions that were made as far as advocating for the Department of Public Works.
The merger that happened between the Highway Department, Tree and Park Department, and the Water.
Put it all under. We were pretty late. I think Foxborough was pretty late to that.
Yep.
That party. The other thing was advocating and prepared to do the heavy lifting to bring in a town engineer.
Okay.
And also the GIS. That was a fragmented. Planning board had some people had some.
GIS
is the global information system, right, where we map everything.
That's what it was, the inventorying and the mapping of all the everything.
Exactly. And when people
now I remember that coming down the pipe back in 2007. That's when that was coming and starting up. So,
but for some of the small jobs that we do, just the documentation to prepare the bid to comply with the procurement regulations is a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And if people want to look at the DPW and think that the savings is somehow going to be found at the bottom of the labor, it's not. It is all those redundant costs that we paid and paid and paid because we did not have that information in-house, mm-hmm, that we could give to an engineer on a major project, 1. 2, doing the smaller stuff in-house and avoiding all these procurement costs. Mm-hmm. So that was that. And thirdly was that we, I think, in the forefront of consolidating the information technology. Yes. There are a lot of town departments that had different budgets. And I think this is something Larry Harrington and I had worked on information technology
I remember that piece back in the day.
Facilities management.
Because also back, what you're referencing, of course, at that time, and this was when Randy Scollins first got on as our town finance director, and a lot of credit to him for having the vision. But the school department and the water department and the town departments were all operating off of different computer systems, so they couldn't actually talk to each other. So a spreadsheet here, it wasn't transportable to a spreadsheet there, and there was a lot of redundant data entry work that was going on, and just a lot of inefficiencies. And so by doing that, you take advantage of your economy of scale, and you have one. If you look at the town as a company, you're now all on the same system.
Right.
And that's what you're referencing when it comes to DPW and the systems in place.
No, that and again, information technology. Mm-hmm. The fellas who are and that department now are doing fabulous work. Everything's getting hooked up. I mean, you've got redundant systems. You've got, between public safety. They've built a nice facility down at the administration building for the schools. They're getting the infrastructure in place. You're finding that the town departments now, if they need something, they can get it. There's now a good balance between the sensitivity that some departments might have for personnel information versus interaction for, whether it be conservation, planning, assessors, health. Now all of a sudden, all this stuff is going to be at your fingertips. So that is good.
Fantastic.
And at the same time, maintaining the privacy issues that are, obviously necessary today.
I love talking government. I'm, of course, here with Mike Stanton, who is the chairman of the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners. And we're really talking about the two warrant articles, but you know me, I'm a government geek, and once we get started chatting, I can chat here all day long. So let's rope it back in and move on to the second warrant article.
The other article is, and here's another one, it was brought about by the fact that our new council, special counsel for water and sewer, was charged with just reviewing everything. And what he found was that back when we had formed the DPW
by vote of town meeting.
Right. And we went to the legislature to modify the Strong Town Managers Act.
Right.
That, rather than just transferring the labor under the town manager,
yes,
we ceded all our authority to the town manager.
Oops.
Yes. So that's it in a nutshell.
And I'm not laughing, but it's one of those
government.
Things, I was just going to say, it's one of those things that the best intentions, something was missed, some I was crossed and some T was dotted, and this is where we end up.
There were some certain carve-outs that should have been put in that weren't.
To protect the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners
to make it,
with their duties and their core responsibilities and ownership, to separate it from the labor piece that you're talking about to form the DPW umbrella.
The article that was put up to the State House did not reflect the intent of what was meant.
So what is the fix?
So the fix is to have the town meeting vote to put a new piece of legislation up to the State House to amend the 2004 Special Act.
Okay, because the 2004 Special Act creating the town manager was was then amended. So this is really amending
the 2013 Act.
Right.
The 2013.
I was going to say, so it's amending the 2013 Act to
put
the
it back
2004 Act for town manager.
To put it back the way it should have been. So we've met with selectmen.
I was going to say, what does selectmen say?
We're on board.
What does the AdCom say?
They're on board.
Very
so
good.
we've got positive recommendations coming out of both. And
so when this is all done, the DPW will still remain?
Everything is in place. I mean, it's part of our discussions with the selectmen. They've re-ratified every vote that we've taken. We gave them that. And so it's situation normal.
You know what, that's interesting. So it's because special counsel determined that the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners, while acting in good faith, didn't actually have the authority to do many of the things. So what the selectmen did is they took all of your votes over the last 2 years, I guess it was, and they essentially ratified what you had already done. So they simply agreed in their vote, because they're now officially, I'll use the air quotes, you can see me on TV using air quotes, they officially have responsibility. And then what this act is going to do is put it back where it should be under the purview of the Board of Water.
It puts it back to the standard practice for the last 40 years. Basically, that's it. So, we caught it.
So it's a little more than housekeeping, but essentially it is correcting an oversight.
Same thing, different terms.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that people should be concerned about with either of these two warrant articles? And I ask you, since Mike Stanton is the chairman, I'm sure that there's an advocacy there. But in good government,
if the wisdom of the town meeting decides to deny it, I get Monday nights off.
There you go. I don't think so. That's probably not going to happen. But as I always say, and we've gone through this, in any good negotiation, you want to also understand what the opposition is thinking, and so that way you can create either a compromise or at least hearty arguments. Is there any downside to reverting back to the way it was before? I can't think of one myself.
I'm going to pretend you didn't phrase it that way. I would say this, that it was created for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
The reasons haven't changed. It's worked well for 40 years.
Well, what I meant was more
anything I know
DPW.
is that certainly in one of the meetings, I said, do you really want to walk back 40 years of standard practice and put this millstone around the town manager's neck?
That's interesting.
There's an incredible amount of work. And
well, not only that, but it's you're the three members of the Board and Water Sewer Commissioners. It's your
we're immersed
area.
in
It's
it.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
I think I was referring more to, is there any piece of the separate? So this is essentially just going to separate out the personnel and make the functional
DPW.
tasks of the water and sewer department under the purview of the DPW director. Is that what we call him?
Right.
Okay, excellent.
Don't forget, as a water and sewer commissioner, and we're policymakers, more technocrat, but we would say, okay, we have got a section of town that has historically had trouble with black water, rust. Fix it. And our job is to make sure that our people have the resources to do it. And if there's maybe a political situation, that's what we do. But we set the policy with the advice, obviously you try to surround yourself, and we have absolutely surrounded ourselves with people who are an awful lot smarter than us. and that's it. And you get out of the way. We're getting off subject, but you know as well as I that Foxborough is well over $1 million a week in
Think
cost.
about it, it absolutely is, because our annual budget is over $56 million. And
Right,
it's-
and given everything that's going on between labor, insurance, the dealing, and just with all the regulatory agencies, you need people who are pros doing this. And you set the direction, and you give them the resources, and you get out of the way. And that's really, that's how we do it. And I think that's why we have achieved more in the last 4 years and laid the keel for really, Foxborough 2040. Because we are looking, in the business we're in, you've got to be that many years out. How do we get there without breaking the bank?
Right. And absolutely, and I suppose that is the best way of putting it. We're all looking forward, and how does your board see Foxborough in the year 2040? And that's what we're doing today, setting the stage for tomorrow. Mike Stanton with our Board of Water Sewer Commissioners. He is the chairman. Quick question, do you want to give a shout out to the other two members of your board?
Absolutely. I work with two other gentlemen, Richard Pasella, who's been on the board for, I think, 4 or 5 years. Engineering background, works in the public sector, has made really the agreement with the sewer district happen. He's put in incredible amount of hours and made tremendous sacrifices, a young wife, young family, and you're lucky to have him. The other gentleman I work with is Bob Garber. Bob was on advisory and was a liaison to the Water and Sewer Commission. Almost never missed one of our meetings. And when the people of Foxborough saw fit to vote him in, you had a fellow who walked in and just hit the ground running. And he's well immersed in the subjects, and again, another asset, and if you see them, either of these fellas in the street, tip your cap to them, because they've really done a service to the town, as a volunteer, and you're lucky to have them.
Well, I've always thought that Bob in particular would have made a great selectman, and I'm glad to see that he's following his passion, which is water and sewer. And a tip of the cap to you as well, Mike, for taking the time to come out here with us and sharing all that is water and sewer, talking about the 2 warrant articles. Of course, everybody, and I know you share my opinion with this, will be at the town meeting, which is the annual town meeting on May 11th up at the Foxborough High School. We know we're going to see you there. Wink, wink, right? Everybody's going to come out. But it is important that you show up, do your civic duty, and cast the votes necessary to make the town work for the coming year. Mike, you get the last word, but I'm going to say thank you so much.
No, thank you. No, just happy to be here and get the information out. It's important. I might have said earlier, we're technocrats, and we're not really the type of guys who go out and are
toot the horn.
Shameless advocates for what we do. And again, really, we set policy, and we've surrounded ourselves with great guys. And again, it's our job to give them the resources to do the day-to-day stuff, but more importantly, given the huge capital expenditures, anything we do is huge money, and also that we're enterprise accounts, that our revenue only comes from the people we service, and really, despite the fact that there's almost $100 million worth of work that needs to be done over the town in the years to come, you try to deliver the best service at the best price.
Excellent. Mike Stanton, Chairman of the Board of Water Sewer Commissioners, thank you very much for coming out. I'm Bob Hickey, your host, thanking you for taking a little bit of time to watch this special election edition. And remember, don't forget that we will be with you live election night, which is May 4th. Please go out and vote. And we will also be talking with the chairman of the advisory committee to talk about these warrant articles as well as all the other ones. So, lots of exciting election stuff on tap. I hope you'll stay with us here on your favorite Foxborough Cable Access station. If you've missed any of the information and you want to check it out again, log on to our website at www.fcatv.org. Click on that little link for Foxborough Central and you'll see my smiling face, and I know we'll give you all the good information. Until next time, Foxborough, we hope to see you safe and sound. Take care.